Good morning, everybody. It's an important time of the day, 10 o'clock in the morning, and for the rest of the week, this is going to be the time for you to um, find out more about the Oregon Wine Board's funded viticulture and enology research that we've been doing. My name is Jason Tosh. I'm with the Stoller Wine Group. I'm also on the board of directors with the Oregon Wine Board and overseeing the research committee at this point in time. And I'm not doing that alone. I'm doing it with these guys. This is the group that's overseeing the research program for the Oregon Wine Board, Your Tax Dollars. We've formed a research steering committee that has representation, mostly group from the Willamette Valley. We have John Pratt from Southern Oregon. This is the governance committee, or the committee that's kind of overseeing the nuts and bolts of the research funding program that the Oregon Wine Board takes on. And what we're essentially doing is creating the processes and working through the processes that helps to support this committee, the full research committee of the Oregon Wine Board, a group of volunteers who have who are prolific in research and the research interests of our state. And you can see here, I've got this slide broken down into the North Willamette Valley, Mid and South Willamette, Southern Oregon, and Northern Border AVAs and areas, AKA the Gorge, Walla Walla. These are your representatives on our research committee. They are helping to guide your tax dollars as we choose to spend and fund researchers who are investigating the problems or applications that we'll apply in our wineries and vineyards. If you can take a look and recognize names on here, these would be people you can contact to share your interests in research or concerns in research. Add your voice. They'll bring that to our committee, and as we decide of how to fund research projects each year, they'll keep your voice in the back of their mind and share that with the group through our system. So I want you to take a minute, absorb try and recognize a name on here. And if you don't see a name, just know that we are set for this year for this committee, but once a year we have an invitation, usually in November, where we invite new members, and we are actively asking that folks from the South and out in the Gorge take a good look and feel free to contact info at OregonWine.org. That should be on your swap card box down below, access to that website or that email, so you can ask how to apply to join this committee. This is a working committee. And so these folks have signed a contract and have agreed to attend several meetings and devote hours of time to review and do the hard work that it takes to make sure that your tax dollars are accurately spent, addressing the key problems for the regions and the state overall as we advance our viticulture and enology initiatives. So use this website as a reference, or this slide. So what is our overall vision on the research committee? A couple of years ago, we spent a month in November, or 2 days in November, at a research summit, and we boiled down the vision for the next several years into this paragraph. It's a mouthful. I'm not going to read it for you, but let's take a minute and review what this encapsulates. And what this vision really exemplifies is the 4 key pillars of our research priorities. They're priorities. So number 1, wine quality. Our state represents to the world, our wine is the highest quality. That's who we are. And how do we get that quality? Well, through sustainable production methods. We've historically been very thoughtful towards how we have created these wines, produced these wines. The sustainability is a key component, and using best practices is an ever evolving investigation that requires research. It goes hand in hand with our 3rd priority, climate, the changing climate. Adapting to the changing climate with sustainable means is how we're going to deal with future climatic conditions as they change, as we change. And so we're going to be spending time and money on investigating how to adapt to the future climate. And then lastly, we find that foundational or discovery research is a key component, and it's something that we've been doing in our history here at Oregon, in Oregon Wine research initiatives. It's research that explores ideas that create new venues for more research that will hopefully be applied in your vineyards and wineries. So foundational research is sort of the seed research that allows other programs to build off of. It's an essential component and priority for our funding. So wanted to share this with you and then move into this slide. Now this slide represents the last 2 years of research that our research committee has committed tax dollars to. Some of these programs these research investigations are recurring or long-term projects. It takes sometimes 3 years or more to become publishable in peer-reviewed journals. So we make sure that we try to stick with our researchers that we have funded for the timeline that they lay out when they apply for our grant monies, to see them through to a publishable state. It's a very uncommon situation. We hope that we wouldn't be able to do that. So yeah, extra attention is paid to your program if you have you're seeking recurring funds. So you can see here that, for example, Achala KC will be speaking after my talk here today to give you an update on the grapevine trunk diseases in Oregon vineyards. This is the second year we've funded her. I wanted to let you know that that's a priority area for us in the area of wine quality and sustainable production. You'll see on the far right how these various summarized projects fall into the priorities that we maintain at the Oregon Wine Board. Now, I want to quickly mention too that we don't look at only projects or researchers that are members of Oregon State University or the Oregon Wine Research Institute. Yes, they are the ones who typically are looking at Oregon-specific problems, and that is a key component to make sure those tax dollars are channeling to Oregon problems. That's why you see a vast majority of the funding going to Oregon State University researchers. They are known as a quality group as well in the world of wine research. So it is not poorly spent dollars. But I want to point out Jeremy Weiss down there from Linfield University. He's working on terroir microbiome in partnership with University of Oregon. We also have USDA in Corvallis. We have also noticed Federico Casasa, assistant professor down in California Polytech, San Luis Obispo, working on variations of berry size. And this one was specific to Pinot Noir, I believe, looking at hens and chicks. And so we are casting our net wide when we ask for proposals to review. We're casting it out to the world of wine in North America, I should say. And that includes Cornell, in universities in Missouri. You've got California, Washington State, any place looking at grape and wine research in the United States can come to us through a grant management system that we and others upload our requests for proposals to. And funding is then determined based on a rating system that has been managed or developed by our steering committee and implemented by our research committee at large. So dollars not being wasted, carefully vetted, carefully spent. Wanted to show you, I get asked a lot, where do we find updates to our research? And I wanted just to show you for a minute here where you can find that. If you look on the Oregon Wine Board website, OregonWine.org, you'll see here my cursor's here, so I'm circling the industry tab. You'll get to the industry Oregon Wine. Then you can just hit search and type in anything that you want. That's the quick way. Another way is to click the research button there, and you'll see right here, OWB funded Vit and Eno research, okay? Click that tab. It takes you to the 2021, it takes you to a list of all the OWB funded research and news releases about it and updates about it. It's all there, and you can browse that way. So here, this tab was clicked inside there. This is the 2020-2021 OWB funded research projects list. And you can see here, this is a summary of stuff that we have funded. This was funded last April during the pandemic, during the shutdown. So we did Zoom, we pivoted and went Zoom, and we're able to really execute a good list of funded projects, even remotely like we are right now. Worked very well, but I wanted to say that you can get to that list and the summaries of what they're about. And we tried to simplify in smaller summaries of each project under their titles so that they can be understood by folks who, like myself, who have a tough time understanding some of the tech jargon of robust research papers. So you'll find the funded research on that. And so then when you find a project that you want to really hone in on, here's an example. Here's Dr. Von Walton, who will be speaking later this week on Red Blotch Day during this half hour, discussing key vectors associated with red blotch. You can really hone in and get to the project objectives and more and more and more and just keep going deep. So it's all on the website. And yes, I'm going to let you know that we are even now planning to make it better, more robust, bring more research and information in. We've just started the work on a potential for a clearinghouse of all relevant research, but that's going to be a work in progress and available to you in years to come. So. Okay, I've talked to you now about the how things are decided to be funded through our research committee. I wanted to kind of track with you now the dollars that we are available to spend on research. Historically, available research dollars follow the amount of tons harvested in our state. 2006, we had 100,000 or just over, but we're up to last year around $350,000 to spend on research, tracking nicely with the growth of this industry. That makes sense. The 2020 vintage will have an effect on our available funding this year. From 350, now we're estimating we'll have about $275,000 to $300,000 to spend. We'll prioritize towards making sure research programs that require continuing funding to get to a publishable state, those will likely be considered first, but we'll also be soliciting new research through our priorities that were set last fall. So I know that smoke exposure research is on your mind, and I want to tell you that is in the request for proposals, our RFP, as a priority. So we will likely see some grant requests for projects that are focusing on that. We're hoping to stretch the $275,000 to $300,000 a long way. We can do that in some years because of work that we've done with our policy boards, such as the Oregon Wine Growers Association. Working with the OWA, we were able to get funding in the 2018 and 2019 seasons from the state legislature. It was very helpful. We love to find extra funding where we can. The staff and Tom Danowski work very hard, as well as other board members, to locate more and funding and leverage the funding to stretch your tax dollars. The blue part of the bar graph under the 2020-2021, that was monies taken from our general fund and reserves at the Oregon Wine Board to fund a very important smoke exposure data collection statewide that was performed by the Oregon Wine Research Institute, Tomasino, Michael Chan, James Osborne, Patty Skinkis, the whole group focused really hard and worked with industry this fall. We came up with money and paid for a giant data set collection that will be used to help look for and investigate issues that smoke exposure has on all of the varieties that we grow in this state at the different levels based on different locations to fires. There's a lot of research that will hopefully work with that data set and get us some information, some optics on how to best to work in a world where changing climate and sustainable practices matter, where we need to get an understanding of how the basic research plays into that issue, and also wine quality, that's paramount. So I'd like to just let you know that we're going to be down, but we're going to leverage those dollars every way. So it's a busy week. It's a great week. This half hour from 10 to 10:30 a.m. is your Oregon Wine Board research update. We've got a few of the key research updates. Like I said earlier, Dr. Achala KC will be exhibiting grapevine trunk diseases right after me. But tomorrow is smoke research update. So Elizabeth Tomasino, Michael Chan, James Osborne are going to be discussing what they found with the smoke event that we had this year. They'll be just expressing what was discovered. Thursday is Red Blotch Day. I'm really excited to have Von Walton and Bhaskar Bondada talking to you about Red Blotch. And then Friday is the hidden world of the microbiome and microbiology day. So winery Brettanomyces work that James Osborne has been doing, as well as Jeremy Weiss, who was working on terroir and recognizing that farming practices do make a difference in terroir. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity and reminder that this half hour is an important time during the next week. And with that, I want to say thank you for your devotion to Oregon wines and the research that it takes to enhance our quality and make Oregon wine the best in the world. So thank you very much.
Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Achala KC. I am an assistant professor at OSU Southern Oregon Research and Extension Center. I work on diseases of tree fruits and wine grapes. And today I'm going to present you on the project updates on grapevine trunk diseases that was funded by Oregon Wine Board. So just to start with a brief background on why grapevine trunk disease is important to Oregon wine industry. We all know that grapevine trunk disease fungi accounts for the largest group of pathogens known to infect grapes. And it is caused by many different fungal species. At least 133 fungal species have been recorded that belongs to 34 genera associated with grapevine trunk disease worldwide. So what does that mean? That means for us, when we collect the trunk disease samples from vineyards, we see a lot of different cultures grown on artificial nutrient media. So it can range from all sorts of different colors and different kind of fungus. It may be pathogens, it may be saprophytes, or like whatever fungal species that's dwelling on the grapevine trunk. And those pathogens are broadly classified into different other complexes of grapevine trunk disease system that can be Eutypa dieback, Botryosphaeria dieback, Phomopsis dieback, Petri diseases, Blackfoot, and ESCA. Probably these are the names that you are familiar with. And even within these systems, it's a complex of the different pathogens, meaning that, for example, Eutypa dieback that is caused by the different group of fungal pathogens. So it's more like a complex within another big complex system. And why it is important to the vineyards? Because it reduces yield over time. The vines infected by grapevine trunk disease, you would see dead spurs, cans, and corymbs. For example, this vine here, the one side of the vine, it is completely dead. The other side kind of looks green, but still does not look healthy. So over time, you will lose the productive vines. And also sometimes, like the stunted growth here, again, on the other side, it looks good, the fruits in there, but this one failed to bear fruits. So that's how, like we would lose the fruits over time. And also definitely disease means increased crop management costs, whether it be cultural or chemical preventative measures. And one of the big problem with the grapevine trunk disease is it shortens the lifespan of the vineyards. Like if you have a grapevine trunk disease, then the life of the vineyard may be shortened more than half. So we may not have vineyards that's looking 30 to 40 years of age. It may just reduce half the life of the vineyard. And so grapevine trunk disease in Oregon situation, like from the samples submitted to a plant health clinic, commercial laboratory reports, and several other previous sample collection efforts, we know that grapevine trunk disease is present in Oregon vineyards. And based on all those reports, there are the reports of Botrytis dieback, and the pathogen associated with them is mostly Botrytis species and Diplodea species. And Eutypa dieback, Eutypa and Diatrypae, Phomopsis with the Dipotis species, Blackfoot, Cylindrocarpon, and Esca and Petri diseases, mostly Phaeachromonium, Phaemonella, and Cataphora species. So these are the fungal pathogens and the grapevine trunk disease that we know present in Oregon vineyards. So with this disease being economically important to our vineyards, we proposed a project to start on the grapevine trunk disease management to Oregon Wine Board, and it was funded 1.5 years ago. So we had 3 objectives. We wanted to identify the major grapevine trunk disease problems in Oregon vineyards and the pathogens associated with its disease. We wanted to understand the timing of spore release and dispersal by each of those pathogens, and compare dormant pruning practices to minimize inoculum production. So to begin with the first objective, we had 2 parts. First, to survey the vineyards and record the symptoms data and collect the samples, and then identify the pathogens associated with it. So we selected 2 grape growing regions in Oregon. So one in the northern Willamette and the other in the southern Oregon. So in the northern Willamette, we focused on these areas, and these were largely suggested by our collaborators. We were looking for a vineyards that had a history of trunk diseases. So these areas we surveyed in North Willamette, and that's the area we surveyed in southern Oregon. So it ranged from northeast Medford, near to Ashland, and also the Applegate, and in North Willamette, mostly Dundee, Dayton area, Amite Hills, and Eola area. So within these 2 regions, we collected samples from approximately 31 vineyard blocks. And we recorded symptoms from the vines that we identified. So we use systematic random sampling procedure. So yeah, the symptoms ranged from diebacks, dead arms, stunted growth, like certain Soter nodes, tiger stripes, foot measles, mostly indicating, like Botrytis or Eutypa dieback, and also the Esca disease. And definitely there were some vines that were symptomless. And in the second step, we wanted to collect samples for pathogen identification. So from the sampled vines or the identified vines for the symptom survey, we collected samples from 3 regions of a vine. We used electric drill with a small drill bit, and we collected samples making 3 holes in a vine. at the top of the trunk, middle of the trunk, between the near to the graft union, and bottom of the vine near the soil line. And when taking out the wood samples, like we could already see some of the vascular tissues were already compromised. They were brown in color, and some were still clean. So we completed a sample collection from both of these vineyard blocks in Willamette Valley and Rogue Valley Vineyards. So with COVID-related travel restrictions in 2020, it was really challenging to get all these samples collected. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the collaborators, the Willamette Valley growers, who helped us collect all these samples. So we received all these wood samples in packages, and now they are in the -80 freezer, and we are processing them for DNA extraction. So once the DNA is extracted, we will analyze that for overall fungal community using ITS metabarcoding, which is more like a partial gene sequence. And we will continue this in the summer of 2021. So the second objective of this project, we wanted to understand the timing of spore release and dispersal by most of common fungal pathogens at critical stages of vine development. Again, we selected the same region that we had selected for survey. So we installed 2 spore traps in the same region that we had collected samples from, and the 2 regions from the Southern Oregon vineyard. So the 2 spore traps were installed in an older block and a newer block in both of these locations. And that's the spore trap. We change the spore traps with a sticky tape every week, and it collects data on everyday spore trap on this. So we are able to analyze the spore trap in everyday samples from these spore traps. So we get a high resolution data from these traps. We installed these spore traps at the beginning of 2019, and we collected 1 full year of data. And with that, we have nearly 1,600 samples collected by now. And so instead of microscope-based quantification of spores, which would be more like a traditional way of quantifying the spores, we are planning on using a molecular-based quantification. So we'll be using qPCR-based quantification with the available primers. And so we will be using the primers that are developed by the Australian group, Belones et al. And also in my last conversation with Kendra and Jose, who have been working a lot on developing these primers, we'll be using those primers as it comes or as it publishes. So far we have started with Botrytis feriaceae primers. So out of 1,600 collected samples, we completed DNA extraction of nearly 1,400 samples and quantified using the Botrytis feriaceae primers for the 437 samples. So we still have a lot more to go with the quantification. And again, this will be the projects that we will be doing in 2021. And we will leave these spore traps in these vineyards until March of 2021. Finally, the last objective of this project is to compare the different management practices, especially with the pruning management. And so we will be starting this trial in this year. So probably next month, we'll have this trial started. And we identified the same older block that we had our spores trapped in last year's. And then we will be testing 3 treatments. So the first would be the complete removal of vine prunings from the vineyard. And the second would be leaving the prunings in between the rows and mechanically mow, more like a commercial standard. And leaving the prunings in between the rows, mechanically mowing it, and then applying with Biotam. That's a biological product that is based on Trichoderma species and is registered for use in Oregon and in wine grapes, and is labeled for wound protection for the grapevine trunk disease. So we will be testing the application of Biotam in both wound and soil application just to see how well these biological control agents colonize the wound tissues as well as the prunings that are on the soil, and minimize the inoculum of the grapevine trunk diseases. So that's our last project that will start next month. It depends on when the vineyard will prune, and will follow with these treatments there. So yeah, with all that, I would like to thank our sponsors and our collaborators: Oregon Wine Board, Rogue Valley Wine Growers Association, all my colleagues at OSU and USDA, and our industry partners, Lee, Brin, Jason, and Willamette Valley Growers, for helping us with the sample collection and everything. And this is my team. Dr. Monica Hernandez is a postdoc hired from this project. She's funded through this project, and she is leading all the activities related to this project. And Juan is a undergraduate research assistant, and Joey is a FRA under our program. So they are helping Monica do all the samplings, and definitely all the partners helping us with this project. That's all I have, and thank you.